After selling my company, I bought my dream beach house to finally relax. The very first night my daughter-in-law called me. "Mother-in-law, go to the guest room. We're bringing my whole family to spend a few days. If you don't like it, they say there's an inn down the street." I was silent, speechless. But that same week, I prepared a surprise that wiped the smiles off their faces in a second. The first night in my new house, I woke up to the sound of waves crashing against the rocks. It was a sound I had waited 42 years to hear. 42 years sewing, negotiating, getting up at 4 in the morning to check orders. 42 years building a textile empire with these hands that were now trembling with emotion as I held a coffee cup on the terrace. I am 68 years old, 68 years of surviving, not living. And finally, after selling my company for $47 million, I had bought this piece of heaven facing the Pacific. A 3-story house with huge windows that let in the golden light of sunset, sand-colored walls, wooden floors that creaked with warmth, and that smell of salt and freedom that I had never felt was mine before. That night, as I was preparing a simple dinner in my new kitchen, so different from that tiny room where I used to boil beans for 3 hungry children, my phone rang. It was Ryan, my eldest son. I felt that warmth in my chest that only a mother knows. "Mom, congratulations again on the house. Jessica wants to say hi." He didn't give me time to answer. I heard my daughter-in-law's voice on the other end, that sweet tone that always set my teeth on edge. "Dearest mother-in-law, how exciting that you're all settled in. Look, I'm calling because Ryan and I want to come over tomorrow with my entire family to see the house. It's just for a few days a week at most, so I need you to clear out the master bedroom and move into the guest room. There are 11 of us coming and we need space. If it makes you uncomfortable, Ryan saw an inn down the street. I think they have rooms available." The world stopped. The waves kept crashing outside, but inside me, something deeper fractured. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there with the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the silence that followed her words. A silence so heavy it nearly suffocated me. "Mom, are you there?" Ryan asked in the background. "Yes, I'm here," I whispered. Jessica let out a light laugh, as if she had just asked to borrow a sweater. "Perfect. Then we'll see you tomorrow around 10. I'll bring breakfast. Well, you'll prepare it right. You know how Ryan likes his eggs." She hung up. I stood there in the middle of that huge kitchen, with the lights reflecting off the white tiles I had chosen so carefully. My hand still held the phone. My breath was short, shallow, as if someone had punched me in the stomach. 11 people. In my house, the house I bought with the money from my company, the company I built from scratch when my husband died and left me alone with 3 children and a $200,000 debt, I closed my eyes. I was 34 again. I was back at that rusty sewing machine with Ryan sleeping in a cardboard box because we didn't have a crib. I felt the pain in my fingers again after sewing for 18 hours straight. I heard the voice of the elementary school principal telling me, "Ma'am, if you don't pay the tuition, Ryan can't stay." Ryan, my firstborn, the one who never cried from hunger because I skipped meals so he could have milk. The one who was able to study engineering because I worked 3 jobs at the same time. The one who now on the other side of the phone remained silent while his wife kicked me out of my own room. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on the terrace watching the dark sea, feeling the cold wind hit my face. And for the first time in decades, I wondered if everything I had built was worth it. Because this house wasn't just a house, it was my reward. It was proof that I survived, that I won that finally. After a lifetime of giving myself to others, I could give something to myself. And in a single phone call, they were taking it away from me. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine yet, was that I hadn't gotten this far by being a woman who gives up. And although I felt something in me break that night, I also felt something older, stronger, more dangerous, beginning to awaken. Because I didn't build an empire by being naive. And what was about to happen was going to remind them exactly who I am. If this story grabbed you from the first second, subscribe to the Elderly Stories channel so you don't miss how this woman reclaimed her dignity. What she did next will leave you speechless. They arrived at 9 in the morning, an hour earlier than agreed. I was still in my pajamas, my hair thrown into a messy ponytail, when I heard the sound of tires on the gravel of my driveway. Not one SUV. Three. Three enormous SUVs completely blocking access to my garage. I peeked out the second-floor window and saw them get out as if it were a military invasion. Mr. Thompson, Jessica's father, was the first. A man in his 60s with a prominent belly-dark glasses and an attitude of ownership that chilled my blood. Behind him came his wife Mary carrying grocery bags. Then came Jessica's siblings. Ashley, a 35-year-old woman in ripped jeans and shiny fake nails, and Eric, a guy who never took his eyes off his phone. Then came the nephews, 4 children screaming and running straight to the beach without even saying hello, and finally an elderly aunt with a cane and a sour face. 11 people, 11 strangers entering my sanctuary as if it were a roadside motel. Jessica was the last to get out. She wore a white linen dress, gold sandals, and Hollywood-style sunglasses. She saw me from below and waved as if we were friends at a luxury resort. "Mother-in-law, have you made coffee yet? We're all starving." Ryan was behind her carrying suitcases. Our eyes met for a second. Just 1 second, and in that instant, I saw something that shattered me more than any word. Shame. My son felt shame, but not enough to stop this. I came down the stairs slowly, still in my pajamas, still not understanding how I had lost control of my own life in less than 24 hours. Mr. Thompson was already inside, walking through my living room as if he were evaluating a property for sale. "Nice house, ma'am. What did you say your name was?" he asked without looking at me. "Helen," I replied with the firmest voice I could manage. "Ah, yes, Helen. Look, it's well laid out, but that armchair over there." He pointed to my favorite armchair, the gray velvet one I had bought at an antique shop. "It doesn't go with the view. You should change it." I didn't answer. I just watched him as he continued walking, opening doors, peeking into rooms that didn't belong to him. Jessica entered the kitchen like a perfumed hurricane and started taking things out of the bags. "Mother-in-law, I need you to tell me where you keep the big pots. I'm going to make breakfast for everyone." "Oh, and I reorganized your pantry a bit. It was all a mess." I opened the pantry door. Indeed, my things were no longer where I had left them. The spice jars I had arranged by color were now piled up senselessly. The cups I inherited from my mother moved to a higher shelf where I could barely reach. "Jessica, I didn't ask you to." "Don't worry, mother-in-law. It's just to make everything more practical. Now that we're going to be here, we need the kitchen to work well." "We're going to be here," as if it were already a done deal. Ryan came in carrying more suitcases. He went up and down the stairs without a word, like an obedient employee. At some point, our eyes met again. I opened my mouth to speak, but he looked away and kept climbing. The children were already running all over the house. One of them knocked over a ceramic vase that cost me $300. It shattered against the wooden floor. No one said anything. Ashley, Jessica's sister, didn't even look up from her phone. "Mom, where do I put Aunt Eleanor's things?" Eric asked. "In the master bedroom," Jessica replied without hesitation. "It's the largest and has a private bathroom. My aunt has hip problems. She needs comfort." My room, my master bedroom, the one with a direct view of the sea, the one I had furnished with Egyptian cotton sheets and ivory-colored curtains, the room where I thought I would finally wake up in peace. That's my room," I said almost in a whisper. Jessica turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, mother-in-law, we already talked about this last night. You'll be fine in the guest room. Besides, it's only for a few days." A few days. That was the first lie of many. At lunchtime, my table was full of people I didn't know. Mr. Thompson presided at the head of the table as if it were his house. Mary served breakfast on my plates. The children screamed. Ashley took selfies with the sea in the background. And Ryan ate in silence, his gaze fixed on his plate. In the middle of the noise, Jessica dropped the bomb. "Well, family, I have something to tell you." I talked to Ryan, and we decided that instead of 1 week, we'll stay for 3. After all, the house has plenty of space and mother-in-law is all alone. Right, mother-in-law? It's better this way. We'll keep each other company. 3 weeks. The fork slipped from my hand and clattered onto the plate with a metallic sound that no one else seemed to hear. I looked for Ryan's eyes. This time he didn't look away. But what I saw there was worse than indifference. It was resignation, as if he too were a prisoner in my own house. "Mom, it's just that," he started to say, but Jessica interrupted him. "Your mom is happy, darling." "Right, Helen. Look how nice. The whole family together." I said nothing. I just got up from the table, went upstairs, and locked myself in the guest room. A small room with no sea view with a single bed that creaked. I sat on the edge and took a deep breath. 42 years of work, $47 million, and I was sleeping in the smallest room of my own house. That night I heard laughter from the terrace, music, the clinking of glasses. They were celebrating, on my terrace, with my wine, in my house. And I was alone in the dark, wondering at what point I stopped being the owner of my own life. But one thing was clear. This was just the beginning. And though I didn't know it yet, the worst was yet to come. On the third day, I discovered that Mr. Thompson had turned my study into his personal office. That study was my sacred place, the only space in the house I had designed, thinking only of myself. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a direct view of the horizon, a walnut desk I had custom-made, and a library full of books I had collected over the years. It was the place where I planned to read, write, maybe learn to paint. It was my refuge. When I opened the door that morning, I found Mr. Thompson sitting in my chair, his feet on my desk, shouting on the phone. "I'm telling you that land is worth double. If you don't close the deal today, I'll lose it. Yes, yes, send me the papers by mail. Give me the address." He saw me standing in the doorway and didn't even take his feet down. "Write this down, 47 Ocean Drive, Serena Point." "Yes, in the name of Arthur Thompson." He used my address for his shady business. "Mr. Thompson, this is my study." He held up a finger asking me to wait as if I were an employee interrupting an important meeting. He continued talking on the phone for another 5 minutes. When he finally hung up, he looked at me as if he had just noticed my presence. Ma'am, Lucy, Helen. Right, look, I need to use this space. I have important business, and it's too noisy downstairs with the kids, you understand. But this is my... Ma'am, don't be selfish. Besides, what do you need such a big study for? With all due respect, at your age, you're not going to start working, are you? I felt the rage rise in my throat like bile. But before I could answer, he was already dialing another number, turning his back on me. I closed the door and stood in the hallway, trembling, not with fear, with fury. But the worst came later. That same afternoon, Jessica decided to reorganize my kitchen. I walked in to find all my pots, pans, and dishes piled on the floor. She was standing in front of the open cabinets, hands on her hips, analyzing. "Oh, mother-in-law, good thing you're here. Look, your kitchen is very disorganized. No one can find anything, so I decided to arrange it as it should be." "Jessica, I already had it arranged." "Yes, but not functionally. For example, why do you have the soup bowls on the top shelf? Those are used more often." "And the porcelain cups, nobody uses those anymore, mother-in-law. I'll just put them in a box." Those cups belonged to my mother, the only things I had left of her. "No, don't touch those." Jessica looked at me with a condescending smile, the kind adults use on stubborn children. "Oh, mother-in-law, don't get sentimental. They're just cups. Besides, look, I bought some new ones here, much more modern." She pulled a set of plastic cups out of a bag. Cheap plastic with tacky, brightly colored flowers. "I bought them at the local supermarket. I charged them to your account. I hope you don't mind. Oh, and by the way, I bought groceries for the whole family." It came out to about $430. "But hey, you have the money, right? That's why you sold your company." $430 in 1 week, for food, for 11 people I didn't invite. I took a deep breath. I counted to 10. I said nothing. Jessica kept talking as if nothing was wrong, arranging my things her way, erasing any trace of me in my own kitchen. That night I tried to talk to Ryan. I found him alone on the terrace, looking at the sea with a beer in his hand. I approached slowly, as if nearing a frightened animal. "Son?" "Mom, please don't start." "Ryan, I can't go on like this. This is my house. I bought it with my money and your wife." My wife is being kind. She's helping you. Helping spending $430 without asking is helping. Kicking her father-in-law out of his own room is helping. He turned to me with tired eyes, as if I were a burden he had been carrying for years. Mom, you have 5 bedrooms. 5. And you live alone. Don't you think it's selfish to want all this space for yourself? The word selfish hit me like a slap. Selfish, I repeated in a low voice. I'm selfish. I didn't mean it like that, but look, Jessica and I are just starting out. We have expenses plans. You've already lived your life, Mom. Now it's our turn. You've already lived your life. Those 5 words pierced my chest like a rusty knife. I've already lived my life, I whispered. Do you really believe that? Ryan sighed. He took another sip of beer and turned his gaze back to the sea. I'm just asking you to be understanding. It's family. Family. That word that once meant everything to me now sounded like a chain. I turned around and went up to my room, the small room, the guest room in my own house. But that night, while everyone was asleep, I passed by the master bedroom. My room. The door was ajar. I heard voices. It was Jessica, talking on the phone with someone, her voice full of that fake joy I hated so much. No girlfriend, I swear. The house is incredible. Look, I just peeked. I saw her on a video call, panning the camera around my bedroom as if she were a real estate agent. Yes, we got the house for the whole summer. The mother-in-law is super nice. We told her it was just for a week. But we've been here 5 days, and she hasn't said a thing. She laughed. That light, carefree laugh of someone who just got their way. Well, what can you do, girlfriend? You have 5 rooms and live alone. What does she need so much space for? We know how to make good use of things. I kept walking to my room. I locked the door. I sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in many years, I felt something I had forgotten. The survival instinct that kept me alive when I was widowed. The instinct that made me build an empire from scratch. That instinct I thought was dormant, but was now awakening with terrifying clarity. Because I didn't get here by letting people walk all over me, and if they thought they could steal my peace, my house, my dignity, they were about to find out who I really was. But not yet. Not yet. First, I needed to understand how far they were willing to go. And what I discovered next was much worse than I imagined. The 10th night I couldn't sleep, not because of the sound of the waves or the heat or even the rage that had been growing inside me for days like a poisonous plant. I couldn't sleep because something in my head kept repeating. This isn't normal. This isn't just inconsideration. There's something more here. It was 3 a.m. when I went down to the kitchen for a glass of water. The house was silent. Everyone was asleep, everyone except me, wandering like a ghost in my own property. As I passed through the living room, I saw a blue glow. The tablet that Ryan and Jessica shared was on the coffee table screen on Forgotten Open. I got closer. I don't know if it was curiosity or instinct, but something told me to look. And what I saw broke me in 2. It was a WhatsApp conversation between Ryan and Jessica dated 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before I bought this house. Jessica, I already talked to my dad. He says the best thing is to convince your mom to gift the house to us while she's alive. That way we avoid problems with your siblings later. My heart stopped beating. Ryan, I don't know, honey. My mom just bought it. I don't think she'll want to gift it so soon. Jessica, that's why, my love. We have to work on her little by little. First, we stay there as guests. We make ourselves indispensable. And then my dad explains the tax benefits of putting it in our name. Your mom doesn't understand that stuff. My hands started to shake. I kept reading. Ryan, what if she says no? Jessica, she's not going to say no. She's your mom. She adores you. Besides, let's be honest, what does she need a house like this for? She's lived enough. We're just starting out. We have a right to live well, too. She's lived enough. There it was again. That phrase. As if my life were a spent bank account. I kept scrolling down the conversation. There was more, much more. Jessica, my dad, says we have to act fast before she decides to put the house in the names of all 3 kids. If she gifts it only to you, your siblings can't claim anything. Ryan, I feel bad for Gabby and Sebastian. Jessica, why they left the country? They abandoned you when you needed them most. You're the one who was here. You deserve that house. A lie. A rotten lie. Gabby and Sebastian left for work. With my blessing. With my support. The three of us talked every week. How dare she poison my son's mind like that? But the worst was further down. A message from 5 days ago. Jessica, your mom is already uncomfortable. Perfect. That's the idea. The more uncomfortable she is, the faster she'll want to simplify her life. My dad already has the papers ready. She just needs to sign. And Ryan's response, Ryan, okay, let's do it. The glass of water slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor. The sound echoed through the sleeping house like a gunshot. I stood there barefoot, surrounded by broken glass, with tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of something more primitive, of betrayal, of the kind of pain that can only be inflicted by someone you gave life to. Ryan. My Ryan. The baby I held in my arms while I sewed with one hand. The boy I defended when other kids made fun of his worn-out shoes. The young man I hugged when they handed him his university degree. That piece of paper I paid for with blood and sleepless nights. That Ryan was stealing from me. No, worse. He was erasing me, as if I were an inconvenience, a pending task, an annoying old woman who had lived enough and now had to step aside. I went upstairs in silence, still barefoot, my face still wet. I passed my room where Aunt Eleanor was snoring. I passed the room where Ashley and her boyfriend were sleeping. I passed the study where Mr. Thompson had put his suitcase and documents. And I reached the guest room, my prison. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at my hands. These hands that built an empire. These hands that signed million-dollar contracts. These hands that never trembled before any challenge. And in that moment, something inside me died. But something else. Something much more dangerous. Ignited. I cried all night. I cried for the naive woman who still believed a mother's love was enough. I cried for the 42 years I spent building a future for children who saw me as an obstacle. I cried for the house I bought with the dream of finally resting, and that was now the stage for my own humiliation. But when the sun came up, there were no tears left. There was only clarity. A cold, calculating, relentless clarity. Because I didn't build an empire by being naive. I built it by being smart, by being patient, by being able to see 10 moves ahead while my competitors barely saw one. And if Jessica and Ryan thought they could play me, they were about to discover that I invented the game. I got up, I washed my face, I dressed carefully. White linen pants, a coral blouse, the pearl necklace I bought when I closed my first big contract. I put on makeup, I did my hair. When I went down for breakfast, everyone was in the kitchen. Jessica was making eggs. Mr. Thompson was reading the newspaper. Ryan was looking at his phone. "Good morning," I said with a smile. Everyone looked at me surprised. I hadn't smiled in days. "Oh, mother-in-law, you look so pretty," Jessica said, not sounding sincere. "Thank you, dear. You know I've been thinking. You're right. This house is too big for me alone." Jessica's eyes glittered like a shark smelling blood. "Isn't it? I've told Ryan 1,000 times." "Yes. So I'm going to make some changes. Important ones." "What kind of changes?" Mr. Thompson asked, putting down the newspaper. "You'll see, but I need a few days. I have to sort out some legal matters." Jessica and Mr. Thompson exchanged a look of triumph. What they didn't know was that I had also exchanged looks, with my reflection in the mirror that morning, and I had made a pact with myself, a pact that was going to change everything. But first I needed to make a call, to the only person I could still trust. I left the house with the excuse of going to the market. I needed air. I needed space to think without feeling their eyes drilling into my back. I drove to the boardwalk and parked facing the sea. I took out my phone and dialed the number I had saved under Moni. Monica Evans, my lawyer, but more than that, my friend for 30 years. The woman who helped me register my company when it was nothing more than a sewing workshop in my garage. The one who reviewed every contract, every negotiation, every step of my way to the top. She answered on the second ring. "Helen, what's wrong? Your voice sounds strange." And there, sitting in my car with the windows down and the smell of salt filling my lungs, I told her everything. The surprise arrival, the invasion, the humiliations, the messages on the tablet, the plan to steal my house. There was a long silence when I finished. "Son of a—" Monty didn't finish the sentence. "Do you have proof?" I saw the messages. "Did you photograph them?" "No, I was in shock." "It's okay. We'll get something better." "Listen to me carefully, Helen. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Act normal. I'm going to investigate this family. Something tells me this isn't the first time they've done this." "What do you mean?" "Arthur Thompson." "That name sounds familiar. Give me 24 hours. We hung up. I sat there watching the waves crash against the rocks with a beautiful, liberating violence. And then something strange happened. I started to remember. Not the last few days, not the recent humiliation. I remembered who I was before I became a mom, a mother-in-law, a ma'am. I remembered Helen Vargas at 34 with 3 kids and $0 in the bank. I remembered the first night after my husband's funeral. The empty house. The silence so heavy it crushed me. Ryan sleeping in a box because we had sold the crib to pay for the burial. Gabby and Sebastian still babies crying for milk we didn't have. I remembered going down to the small workshop my husband never finished using. An old sewing machine, scraps of fabric, and a decision. Either I gave up or I fought. I chose to fight. The first few weeks I sewed school uniforms for the neighborhood elementary school. $5 per pair of pants. I worked 18 hours a day. My fingers bled. Ryan would wake up at midnight and find me there sewing under the yellowish light of a flickering bulb. "Mom, why are you crying?" he asked me once. "I'm not crying, my love. It's just exhaustion." A lie. I was crying because I didn't know if we were going to survive the next week. But we survived. 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. A year later, I wasn't just sewing uniforms. I was sewing First Communion dresses, Sweet 16 gowns. I became known for my perfect stitch, for meeting impossible deadlines, for saying yes when other seamstresses said no. 3 years later, I opened my first shop, Vargas Textiles. A simple, honest name. 5 years later, I hired my first 10 employees. 10 years later, I had 3 branches and contracts with department stores. 20 years later, I was a national supplier. 42 years later, I sold my empire for $47 million. 42 years without giving up. 42 years saying no to fatigue, to fear, to defeat. And now I was going to let myself be defeated by a manipulative daughter-in-law and a cowardly son. No. I started the car and drove back, but not to the house. First, I stopped by the bank. I needed to move some things around, make sure my money was protected. Then I went to the notary's office. I requested certified copies of the deed to my house. I put them in a manila envelope in the glove compartment. And finally, before going back, I stopped at a coffee shop and ordered a black coffee. Alone, bitter. The way I liked it before everyone told me it wasn't good for my age. My age. As if being 68 turned me into an old piece of furniture that needed to be replaced. I drank that coffee slowly, savoring every sip, remembering every battle won. When I got back home, it was almost 6 in the evening. The family was on the terrace drinking piña coladas and laughing. My wine, my glasses. They saw me arrive, and Jessica waved. "Mother-in-law, where have you been? We were starting to think you got lost." "I just went to run some errands," I replied calmly. "Did you bring anything for dinner? Because what I made for lunch wasn't enough." Of course it wasn't enough. There were 11 mouths eating like there was no tomorrow. "No, I didn't bring dinner." Jessica frowned, annoyed. "Oh, mother-in-law, well then I'll have to order some pizzas." "It's going to cost about $150, you know." "Do what you want," I said, going up the stairs. I heard murmurs below. Surprise. It wasn't the answer they were expecting. That night, lying in my small bed, my phone rang. It was Moni. "Helen, I have information, and you're not going to like it." "Tell me." "Arthur Thompson has a clean legal record, but a shady moral one. I found 3 cases in the last 10 years where families accuse him of real estate fraud. He convinces elderly people to donate properties in exchange for care that never comes. Then he sells the houses and disappears. They've never been able to prove it legally, but there are reports." My stomach turned. "And Jessica Thompson Cruz. Here's the good part. She has an active lawsuit against her, $230,000 pyramid scheme. She convinced several women to invest in a cosmetics business that never existed. It's in legal proceedings. Ryan knows nothing." "How do you know he doesn't know?" "Because the lawsuit was filed 2 months ago, and Jessica's fiscal address is her parents', not the apartment she shares with your son. She's been hiding it." I closed my eyes. It all made sense. They needed money. A lot of money. And I was the perfect bank. "Moni, I need your help." "For what?" "To set a trap." There was a pause. "Helen Vargas. I thought you'd never say it." "Tell me what you need." And there, in that small room that smelled of dampness and defeat, I began to design the most important plan of my life. It wasn't going to be fast, it wasn't going to be easy, but it was going to be perfect, because I hadn't gotten this far by being impulsive. I had gotten here by being a strategist. And Bim. They were about to play a game in which I had a 42-year head start. The 14th day dawned overcast gray, as if the sky knew something was about to break. I was in the kitchen making myself tea when I heard voices in the living room, unfamiliar voices, men's voices I didn't recognize. I peeked around the corner carefully. Mr. Thompson was sitting in my armchair, the gray velvet one he hated so much, talking to a man in a suit. A leather briefcase rested on my coffee table, papers scattered everywhere. "So with this clause, the transfer is tax-exempt," the man in the suit was saying. "It's completely legal. The lady gifts the property to her son while she is alive, and you save yourselves problems with the IRS and with possible claims from other heirs." My blood ran cold. It was 8 in the morning, and they had summoned a notary. In my house. Without my knowledge. I took a step towards them and cleared my throat. They both turned. Mr. Thompson didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "Ah, Mrs. Lucy." "Helen," I said for the umpteenth time, feeling the rage climb up my throat. "Right. Let me introduce you to Mr. Smith. He's a notary. I called him to advise us on how to handle the transfer of your house in the most convenient way." "Excuse me." The words came out like ice. The notary stood up, uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I understand this may seem sudden, but Mr. Thompson explained to me that you had already made the decision to gift the property to your son. I'm just here to formalize the process." "I haven't made any decision." I said, each word laced with contained fury. Mr. Thompson stood up too, with that condescending smile I knew so well. "Helen, don't get nervous. It's just a formality. Ryan is your son. Eventually everything will be his. Why complicate things? It's better to do it now. Simple, clean. Besides, think of the tax benefits. Get out." "What?" "Get out of my house. You and the notary. Now." Mr. Smith gathered his papers at lightning speed, muttering apologies. "Ma'am, I didn't know. I thought it was an agreed-upon matter. Excuse me." He practically ran out. Mr. Thompson, on the other hand, didn't move. He looked at me with those small, calculating eyes. "You're making a mistake, ma'am. My daughter and your son are making life plans together. This house could be the inheritance for your future grandchildren. Don't you want that for your family?" "My family doesn't include scammers." I said the words slipping out before I could stop them. His expression changed. The friendly mask fell for a second, and I saw what was underneath. Pure contempt. "Be careful what you say, ma'am. Or what are you going to threaten me in my own house?" We held each other's gaze, 2 animals sizing each other up. It was Jessica who broke the moment. She came down the stairs in a silk robe, yawning. "What's all this shouting, Dad? What happened?" "Nothing, dear. It's just that your mother-in-law doesn't understand that we're trying to help her." "I don't need your help," I said, "and I want you to leave. All of you. Today." Jessica looked at me as if I had spoken in another language. "Leave, mother-in-law? You're kidding, right?" "I'm not kidding. But we've been here for 2 weeks. You can't just kick us out like this. Besides, where are we going to go? We had plans to stay until the end of the month." "That's not my problem." Her face changed. The fake sweetness vanished. What was left was something cold, calculating, dangerous. "I see. So that's how it is. Family when it's convenient for you, right? When you needed someone to visit you while you were building your little company, Ryan was there. But now that you have money, you throw us out like dogs." "My little company," I repeated, feeling every muscle in my body tense, "cost me 42 years of my life. And I will not allow a scammer—" "Scammer!" Jessica screamed. "How dare you? $230,000. Pyramid scheme." Sound familiar? The color drained from her face. Who told you that? Does Ryan know? Does your husband know he's being sued? Does he know that the only thing you want from this family is money to pay your debts?" "You don't know anything." Her voice trembled now. "You don't know what I've been through. And I'm not interested in knowing. I want you, your father, your mother, your siblings, and everyone you brought with you to get out of my house. You have until 6 o'clock this evening." I turned to go up the stairs, but then I heard her voice. Low, venomous. "If you kick us out, Ryan goes with us." I stopped. "What did you say?" "You heard me, mother-in-law. Ryan is on my side, not yours. If we go, he goes, and he will never speak to you again." "Are you willing to lose your son over a selfish old woman's tantrum?" Something inside me broke in that moment. It wasn't the threat. It was the word old, said with such contempt, as if my age were a disease, as if my 68 years of life work and sacrifice were worthless. I turned around slowly. "Ryan can choose whatever he wants, but this house is mine, and no one is going to take it from me." I went up the stairs without looking back. I went into my small room, locked the door, and then I heard something that shattered me, Ryan's voice in the hallway. "What happened? Why are you all yelling? Your mother," Jessica said, her voice breaking, playing the perfect victim. "She's kicking us out. She says we're scammers, that we're not welcome. She says you have to choose between her and me." "Mom did what—" "You heard me. After everything we've done for her, she treats us like trash." There was a silence, and then the words that sank me deeper than anything else. "It's okay. We're leaving. Pack everything. I'm not going to let her treat my wife like that." I heard his footsteps walking away. I heard doors closing. I heard the sound of suitcases being dragged. And I just sat there on that small bed, feeling the world I had built for 42 years crumble to dust. But something strange happened. I didn't cry. There were no tears left. There was only something colder, more lethal, because in that moment I understood something. Ryan had chosen, and he hadn't chosen me. I took out my phone and called Moni. "Are you ready?" I asked. "I have been for days." "Then it's time. Let's do this." "Are you absolutely sure, Helen? Because after this, there's no turning back." I looked out the window. I saw the suitcases being loaded into the SUVs. I saw Jessica directing everything like a general on a campaign. I saw Ryan, my Ryan, obeying every order without question. "I'm sure." "Perfect. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock sharp. Bring everyone. We're going to give them the show of their lives." I hung up, and for the first time in 14 days I smiled. A smile that had no joy in it, only justice. They left that same afternoon. 11 people. 3 SUVs, suitcases, bags. They even took towels from my bathroom and bottles of wine from my cellar. I watched it all from the second-floor window, without going down, without saying goodbye. Ryan came up once. He knocked on my bedroom door. "Mom." I didn't open it. "Mom, please let's talk." I remained silent, sitting on the bed, with my hands on my knees. "Fine," he finally said. his voice heavy with something I couldn't decipher. "If this is what you want, be well." I heard his footsteps retreating. I heard the sound of the SUVs starting up. I heard my son leave my house, my life choosing a woman who was using him. When the silence returned, I went downstairs. The house was a disaster. Dirty dishes everywhere, wet towels thrown on the floor, the terrace littered with empty bottles and cigarette butts. Mr. Thompson's study with crumpled papers and cigar ash on my walnut desk. But the house was mine again. I spent that entire night cleaning. Not because I had to, but because I needed to reclaim every inch of my space. To clean not just the physical dirt, but the toxic energy they had left behind. At 2 a.m, with the house finally in order, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the terrace. The sea was calm. The stars shone with a clarity I hadn't seen in weeks. I took out my phone and called Gabby, my daughter, the middle child, the one who always had my temperament. "Mom, are you okay? It's 2 a.m. here." "I'm not okay," I said, and my voice trembled for the first time. "But I'm going to be. I need to tell you something." I told her everything. From Jessica's first call to the fight that afternoon, the messages on the tablet, the notary, the lawsuit against Jessica. Everything. There was a long silence when I finished. "That bitch." Gabby took a deep breath. "Mom, why didn't you call us sooner?" "Because I was ashamed. Ashamed of what? Of having raised a son capable of doing this to me." "That's not your fault. Ryan has always been malleable." "Dad knew it. I know it. Sebastian knows it. That's why Jessica chose him." Those words hurt, but they were true. "What are you going to do?" Gabby asked. "Something I should have done from the beginning. Fight back. Count on me. What do you need? For now, just your support, and your brother's, because what's coming is going to be ugly. You have it. Always." We hung up. I called Sebastian next. My youngest son, the quietest one, gave me the same unconditional support. And there, surrounded by the love of 2 of my 3 children, I felt I could breathe again. The next day at 9 a.m, Moni arrived. She wasn't alone. She brought a young man with glasses carrying a laptop. "Helen, this is Omar Williams, a private investigator. He has information you need to see." We sat in my living room. Omar opened his laptop and began to show me files, photographs, documents, screenshots. "Arthur Thompson Puga," Omar began. 63 years old. In the last 15 years, he has been involved in 7 cases of real estate dispossession. 3 ended in out-of-court settlements. 2 had the statute of limitations expire. 1 is still active. 1 more was dismissed for lack of evidence. His modus operandi is always the same. He approaches elderly people, usually widows or widowers, with assets through a close family member. He offers legal help to protect the assets. He ends up taking the property. He showed me photos, houses, land, and faces. Faces of elderly people who had lost everything. This lady, he pointed to a photo. She lost her house in Palm Springs. She had lived there for 40 years. Arthur convinced her to put it in her daughter's name, who was married to Arthur's son. 6 months later, the daughter divorced and sold the house. The lady ended up in a nursing home. I felt nauseous. And Jessica. Omar switched screens. "Jessica Thompson Cruz, 32 years old, active lawsuit for $2.3 million. Pyramid scheme disguised as a multi-level marketing business. She convinced 17 women to invest between $50,000 and $300,000 each. The business never existed. She used the money to pay personal debts and for luxuries. The lawsuit was filed 4 months ago. Ryan is not in any of the documents. She kept everything separate. Why did she marry my son?" Moni was the one who answered. "For you, Helen. Your son was a perfect target. An engineer with a stable job but no great income. The son of a successful businesswoman. They saw the opportunity and took it. The wedding was 2 years ago, right?" I nodded. "Just when you closed your biggest contract with a major retailer. It was in the local papers. Textile entrepreneur closes $1 million deal. They read it, and they started planning." I leaned back on the sofa, feeling how everything made sense in the most painful way possible. So it was never ever about Ryan. No, said Omar. It was always about you. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. What do we do now? Moni smiled. That lawyer's smile I had seen 1,000 times when she was about to win a case. Now we set a trap, and for that, you need to do something that is going to hurt you a lot. What? You're going to call Ryan. You're going to apologize, and you're going to invite them to a reconciliation dinner in 3 days. What, why? Because we need them to feel safe again, to let their guard down, and then we show them everything we have. They won't come. Ryan is furious with me. They'll come, Moni said with certainty, because you're going to tell them exactly what they want to hear. That you've thought things over, that you were confused, that you want to fix everything with legal documents involved. They'll think they've won. And then we give them the surprise of their lives. Omar pulled a yellow folder from his briefcase. Everything is here. Proof of Arthur's frauds. Documents from the lawsuit against Jessica. And something else I found. He opened the folder. There was a series of printouts from Facebook. Jessica has a private group with her siblings and cousins. It's called Operation Big House. All the messages planning how to convince you to donate the house are there. How to manipulate Ryan. They even discuss what to do with you after you sign. What do they say? Omar showed me a screenshot. The words were there, clear, brutal. Ashley. And what happens after the old lady is going to keep living there. Jessica, no. My dad already has a nursing home picked out. It's about $1,500 a month. We'll get that from selling her antique furniture. A nursing home. They plan to put me in a nursing home after stealing my house. Something inside me hardened into stone. When do we do this? I asked with a voice I didn't recognize as my own. The day after tomorrow. Saturday at 7 in the evening. Invite them to dinner. Tell them you want to talk about doing things right. We'll arrive at 8. And what will happen? Moni took my hand. Justice will happen, my friend. The good kind. The kind that hurts. That night, I called Ryan. It took more out of me than any business negotiation of my life. Son, it's me. Silence. I want to talk. With you and Jessica. I know I behaved badly. I was confused, scared, but I want to fix things. Mom, please. A dinner on Saturday. Just us. And then we'll talk calmly about everything. About the house. About the future. About what's best for everyone. There was a long pause. Are you serious? Very serious. I'll talk to Jess. Thank you, son. He hung up. 20 minutes later, I received a message from Jessica. We'll be there, mother-in-law. Glad you came to your senses. See you on Saturday. I put the phone away. Moni was right. They had taken the bait, and I was ready to sink the harpoon. Saturday dawned with a sky so blue it seemed fake. I spent the whole morning preparing dinner, not because I felt like it, but because I needed to keep my hands busy. If I stopped to think too much about what I was about to do, I might lose my nerve. I made a traditional stew, Ryan's favorite since he was a child. The one I made for his birthdays, his graduations, for every important moment of his life. I made it with my mother's recipe, the one with 32 ingredients that takes 3 days to prepare. I made it perfectly because I wanted him to remember. I wanted him, when it was all over, to know exactly what he had lost. At 5 in the afternoon, Moni arrived with Omar and a woman I didn't know. This is Patricia Evans, Moni introduced. A specialist in civil fraud. She's here as a legal witness to what's going to happen. Patricia shook my hand firmly. Mrs. Vargas, what we are going to do tonight is completely legal. But I need you to understand that after this, your relationship with your son will change maybe forever. Are you sure? I looked out the window. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sea orange and violet. My relationship with my son already changed, I said. He made his choice. Now I'm making mine. All right. Then let's proceed. Moni took a portable projector out of her briefcase. Where do you want us to set this up? In the dining room. Let them see it on the big wall. I want them to have nowhere else to look. They spent the next hour getting everything ready. The projector, the laptop, organized documents, hidden audio recorders. Everything had to be perfect. At 10 to 7, I heard the sound of tires in the driveway. They arrived in a single SUV this time, just Ryan, Jessica, Mr. Thompson, and Mary, the negotiators. I glanced in the hallway mirror before opening the door. I had put on a simple beige dress, the pearl necklace, discreet makeup. I wanted to look like the nice mother-in-law they expected, submissive, repentant, easy to manipulate. I opened the door with a smile. Come in, so glad you could make it." Jessica gave me a fake hug, the kind that doesn't really touch. "Oh, mother-in-law, we wanted to fix things too." "Right, honey." Ryan nodded uncomfortably, not looking me in the eye. Mr. Thompson walked in as if he had never left, heading straight for the living room. "Smells good, Lucy." "Helen," I corrected for the last time. "And it's stew, Ryan's favorite." I saw something flash across my son's face. A flicker of nostalgia, of guilt. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. I sat them down in the dining room. I served the dinner with my own hands. I used the best glasses, the crystal ones I inherited from my grandmother. I opened a bottle of red wine I had been saving for a special occasion. Because this was special. Just not in the way they thought. "Let's make a toast," I said, raising my glass. "To family, to finding solutions, to doing things right. Cheers!" They all said, clinking glasses. I barely took a sip. I needed a clear head for what was coming. The dinner proceeded with tense but polite conversation. Jessica talked about her future plans. Mr. Thompson mentioned investment opportunities. Mary praised the house's decor as if she were appraising it, and Ryan ate in silence, his gaze fixed on his plate, chewing the stew that I had prepared with so much love and so much rage. At 5 to 8, the doorbell rang. They all turned, surprised. "Are you expecting someone else?" Jessica asked with a tone of alarm. "Yes," I said, standing up. "My lawyers." The color drained from their faces. I opened the door. Monty entered with Patricia and Omar, all three formally dressed, carrying briefcases. "Good evening," Moni greeted with a professional voice that allowed for no argument. "I am Monica Evans, legal representative of Mrs. Helen Vargas. This is Patricia Evans and private investigator Omar Williams." Jessica jumped to her feet. "What is this mother-in-law? You said we were going to talk as a family." "And we are going to talk," I replied with a calm I didn't feel. "But it will be with everything on the table, with the truth." "I don't understand." "Sit down," Moni ordered. "Please." Something in her voice made them all obey, even Mr. Thompson, who looked like he was calculating if he could make a run for it. Omar connected the laptop to the projector. The dining room wall lit up. "What you are about to see," Patricia began, "is the result of an exhaustive investigation into the true intentions of the Thompson family regarding this property and Mrs. Vargas." The first image that appeared was the WhatsApp messages, the ones I had seen that night on the tablet. Enlarged, clear, undeniable. "Jessica, we have to convince your mom to gift the house while she's alive." "Ryan, I don't know, honey. My mom just bought it." "Jessica, that's why, my love, we have to work on her little by little." Ryan turned pale. "Where did you get that?" "From your own tablet," I said, "the one you left open one night." "Keep going." The next image was worse. "Jessica, your mom has lived enough." "We're just starting out. We have a right to live well, too." The silence that followed was so thick you could cut it with a knife. That's taken out of context," Jessica stammered. "Really?" Monty asked. "Let's see more context then." Click. Another image. The Facebook group Operation Big House. The messages appeared one after another on the wall, like a horror movie but real. "Ashley. And the old lady is going to keep living there." Jessica. "No, my dad already has a nursing home picked out. It's about $15,000 a month." Eric. "And what if she refuses?" Mr. Thompson, "She won't refuse. Once she has the papers signed, she won't be able to do anything." Ryan stood up trembling. "No, it can't be." "But there's more," Omar continued, changing the slide. "Arthur Thompson Puga, 63 years old. 7 cases of real estate dispossession in his history." Here are the victims. Faces appeared on the screen. Elderly people. People who had lost everything. This lady from Palm Springs. This gentleman from Austin. This family from Phoenix. They all lost their houses using the exact same method they tried to use on Mrs. Vargas. Mr. Thompson jumped up. That's slander. I'm going to sue you. Try it, Patricia said coldly. All these documents are public record. They're in the courts. I have the certified copies. And now for the best part, Moni smiled. Jessica Thompson Cruz. Active lawsuit. $2.3 million. Pyramid scheme. The official document appeared on the screen, with seals, with signatures, undeniable. Ryan turned to his wife. What is this, Jessica? I can explain. Then explain, he shouted, and it was the first time in weeks I had seen fire in his eyes. Why is there a lawsuit against you that I knew nothing about? Honey, it's a misunderstanding. $2 million is not a misunderstanding. 17 women scammed, Omar continued. Some lost their life savings. One had to sell her house. Another fell into depression and was hospitalized. Jessica started to cry. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage, of frustration at being caught. Ryan, I said, and my voice came out firmer than I expected. Now do you understand? She didn't marry you for love. She married you for my money, for this house. You were just the means to get to me. My son looked at me, and in his eyes I saw everything break. His marriage, his trust, his world. Mom, I didn't know. I know. That's why you're here. Because I still believe there's something in you worth saving. Jessica stood up, dragging Ryan by the arm. We're leaving, now. Sit down, Patricia ordered. We're not finished yet. We don't have to listen to this. Yes, you do, Moni said. Because if you walk out that door now tomorrow morning, I file a lawsuit for attempted fraud, coercion, and conspiracy to dispossess. And believe me, with everything we have, you'll go straight to jail. All three of you. That stopped them. Mr. Thompson and Jessica exchanged panicked glances. What do you want? Mr. Thompson asked. And that's when I spoke. With all the authority of a woman who built an empire and was not going to be destroyed. I want you to sign documents renouncing any future claim on my assets, and I want Jessica to tell Ryan the truth. All of it, now. I'm not going to... Or tomorrow this, I pointed to the screen, goes to the district attorney. You choose. The silence stretched like an open wound. And then Jessica, the perfect manipulator, finally broke. Jessica slumped into the chair like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Fine, she whispered. Fine. I'll tell him everything. Ryan was standing, his hands shaking, looking at her as if she were a stranger. Jess. She lifted her face. The makeup smeared by tears gave her a ghostly appearance. There was nothing left of the sweet, manipulative woman. Just a cornered scammer. We got married because my dad saw the opportunity, she began in a broken voice. He saw the article in the newspaper about your mom, about her company, about the $1 million contract. And he said we had to get close. Get close. Ryan took a step back as if the words burned him. I was desperate. The lawsuit was already coming. I needed money, a lot of money. And my dad said your family was the solution. The solution? My son's voice broke. I loved you. I introduced you to my mother. I opened my life to you. I know, Jessica sobbed. And at first that was all it was going to be. Marry you, get close to your mom, get some money. But then she bought this house, and my dad said we could have more. Much more. The house, I murmured. It was always about the house. Yes, she admitted without looking at me. The plan was to stay here, to make her feel uncomfortable until she agreed to gift the property. My dad was going to handle the paperwork so it would be in Ryan's name only. And then what? my son asked in a voice so broken, it hurt my soul. Then we were going to get a divorce. I would get half in the settlement, we'd sell the house, I'd pay my debts, and we'd go our separate ways. The silence that followed was devastating. Ryan staggered, literally, as if he had been physically struck. He grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. You never loved me." Valentina didn't answer, and that lack of an answer was the cruelest answer of all. "Son," I began to say, but he held up his hand. "No, Mom. Let me process this." He walked over to the window, turning his back on everyone. I saw his shoulders shake. He was crying. And I, who had planned this moment, who had wanted to see justice, felt my heart break seeing my son shattered. Mr. Thompson tried to get up. "This is a circus. We're leaving. Nobody moves." Patricia's voice was as sharp as glass. "There are still legal matters to resolve." Monty took a folder from her briefcase. "Arthur Thompson, I have documents here that link your legal advice to at least 5 cases of dispossession. I have testimonies. I have bank transfers. I have everything necessary to proceed criminally against you. You can't prove. I can and I will, unless you sign this." She placed a document on the table. "It's a total and absolute waiver of any present or future claim on the assets of Helen Vargas or her direct heirs. In addition, a commitment not to approach her or her family under any circumstances. If you fail to comply, everything we have goes straight to the DA's office." Mr. Thompson read the document with eyes blazing with anger. "This is extortion." "No," I corrected. "This is protection. Sign or face the consequences. You decide." He clenched his jaw, took the pen, and signed with so much rage he nearly tore through the paper. "Now you—" Monty placed another document in front of Jessica. "The same. And in addition, a written admission that your relationship with Ryan Vargas was based on deceit for financial gain. This will help him initiate the divorce without complications. I'm not signing that. Then tomorrow morning I speak with the 17 women who sued you. I give them all this additional information. Your case of simple fraud becomes conspiracy and organized crime. That's a minimum of 8 years in prison, Jessica." 8 years. Jessica looked at her father. He looked away, and that's when I understood everything. Mr. Thompson had used her just as much as she used Ryan. A family of predators, every man for himself. Jessica signed, with tears of rage, but she signed. "Perfect," said Patricia. "Omar, as a legal witness, do you confirm that these signatures were given without physical coercion?" "I confirm. All present were in full possession of their faculties and signed voluntarily after being informed of the legal consequences of their actions." "Excellent. Then this is settled." Monty collected the documents and put them away. "Now you can leave. You have 24 hours to remove any belongings you have left in this house. After that, if I see you near this property again, I'm calling the police." Mr. Thompson and Mary stood up without a word. They walked to the door like defeated soldiers. Jessica followed them, but before leaving she turned to Ryan. I'm sorry. I really am." "Go," he said without turning around. He was still looking out the window. "Just go." She left. The door closed, and we were left there. The lawyers, my son, and me. "Ryan," I said softly. He finally turned. His eyes were red, his face destroyed. "Mom, you were right. About everything. And I treated you like you were the problem. I kicked you out of your own house. I let them humiliate you. For her. For someone who never loved me." I walked towards him slowly. "Son, I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," I said, and the words came out harder than I intended. "But I'm going to forgive you anyway. Because you're my son, and because you made a mistake, not a crime. I almost lost everything because of that mistake. I almost lost you. But you didn't. Because in the end, when you saw the truth, you didn't deny it. You didn't justify it, and that counts." He broke. My 43-year-old son collapsed in my arms like he was 5 and had fallen off his bike. He cried with his whole body with those deep sobs that come from the soul, and I held him because I'm his mother, and mothers don't know how to stop loving, even when they're shattered. Moni and the others discreetly left, leaving us alone. When Ryan finally calmed down, we sat on the terrace. The sea was dark, choppy from the wind. "What am I going to do now?" he asked in a hoarse voice. "It was all a lie. My marriage, the last 2 years, everything." "Now you're going to rebuild," I said. "You're going to get a divorce. You're going to go to therapy. You're going to learn to trust again. And you're going to remember who you are, the son of Helen Vargas, and the sons of Helen Vargas don't stay down." He managed a sad smile. Can I stay tonight? I don't want to go back to that apartment." "Not yet." "You can stay as long as you need, but in the guest room. The master bedroom is still mine." That small joke broke some of the tension. He laughed. A bitter laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. "Understood, Mom. Understood." That night after Ryan went up to sleep, I stayed alone on the terrace. I took out my phone and sent a message to Gabby and Sebastian. "Everything went well. Your brother is here. He's hurt, but he's going to heal. I love you. Thank you for believing in me." The replies came almost immediately. Words of love, of support, of real family. And there, sitting under the stars with the sound of the waves and the weight of 42 years of battles on my shoulders, I understood something. I had won. I hadn't just gotten my house back. I had gotten back my dignity, my strength, my voice, and although the price was high, although seeing my son broken hurt me more than anything else, I knew I had done the right thing, because sometimes true love isn't protecting people from pain. It's protecting them from lies, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. 6 months later, the March sun streamed through my living room windows, painting everything gold. That warm color that only exists on spring mornings when the world seems to promise that everything can begin again. I was on the terrace, a steaming cup of coffee in my hands, watching the waves draw lace foam on the sand. I was wearing a mustard-colored linen blouse and white pants. My hair was down, with just a few gray hairs I no longer bothered to hide. I felt light, as if I had been carrying an elephant on my back for months, and someone had finally lifted it off. I heard footsteps behind me. "Good morning, Mom." Ryan appeared with 2 plates of chopped fruit. He looked different. Thinner, yes, more tired too. But there was something new in his eyes, clarity, as if he had finally woken up from a long, confusing dream. "Good morning, son. Did you sleep well?" "Better than a month ago, worse than a week ago. I'm making progress." He sat down next to me. He didn't live with me anymore, of course. After that terrible night, he stayed for 2 weeks in the guest room. Then he found a small apartment near the sea, something modest, something he could afford on his engineer's salary without depending on anyone else. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. Jessica didn't fight. She couldn't. With all the evidence against her, she signed the papers without a fuss and disappeared. I heard she moved to Austin, far from the women who sued her, far from the scandal. Mr. Thompson also vanished. The victims of his previous frauds, armed with the information Omar compiled, finally managed to file a class action lawsuit. The last I heard of him, he was facing trial. I don't know how it will end, but at least he can't hurt anyone else. "Mom," Ryan said, pulling me from my thoughts, "I want to tell you something." "Tell me." "I started therapy, like you suggested." "And how's it going?" "Hard. Very hard. The therapist says I have trouble setting boundaries, that I always sought external approval instead of building internal self-esteem. She says that's why I was a perfect target for someone like Jessica." I stayed quiet, letting him talk. "And we also talked about you. About me. About how I made you my savior. About how I expected you to always solve everything, and when you dared to tell me no, to deny me something, I took it as a betrayal." He took a deep breath. "I wasn't a good son, Mom. Not in these last few years. You were a manipulated son. I was an adult son who chose not to see, who chose what was easy over what was right." He looked me straight in the eye. "And I'm sorry. I truly am sorry." I took his hand. "I know, and I've already forgiven you. But son, you need to forgive yourself too, because you're going to carry that guilt like a stone in your chest until you learn to let it go. He nodded, with tears in his eyes that he no longer tried to hide. I'm working on it. Good. Because I didn't raise a son to spend his life crying over mistakes he can't change. I raised him to learn, grow, and move forward. He smiled, a small but genuine smile. You're incredible, Mom. I don't know how you do it. 42 years of practice, son. 42 years. That afternoon, Gabby and Sebastian arrived. My daughter came from Barcelona with her husband and my 2 grandchildren. Sebastian from Toronto with his partner. Seeing them walk through that door with suitcases and laughter and that beautiful chaos that only true family brings filled my heart in a way I hadn't felt in months. Grandma, the children shouted, running towards me with open arms. I hugged them, those warm little bodies, those faces full of innocence, and I thought this was worth it. This is what I fought for. That night we all had dinner together on the terrace. I prepared a hearty soup, rice, and caramel flan. The table was full, noisy, alive. Gabby helped me serve. In the kitchen, while I was warming up tortillas, she said to me, Mom, I'm proud of you, of how you handled everything. Many women your age would have let themselves be dragged down. But you taught them a lesson they'll never forget. I didn't do it to teach lessons, dear. I did it to survive. Well, you accomplished both. Sebastian, who had been listening from the doorway, added, What you did also helped Ryan. I know it sounds harsh, but he needed that reality check. He needed to hit rock bottom to be able to start climbing back up. I looked towards the terrace where Ryan was playing with my grandchildren. He was making them laugh by tossing them in the air. For the first time in a long time, I saw him happy. Not a fake or dependent happiness, a happiness of his own. I think you're right, I said. Sometimes true love is letting people face the consequences of their decisions, so they can learn. Exactly. Gabby hugged me. And you taught us that, all 3 of us. That's why Sebastian and I are okay. Because you taught us to be independent, to value ourselves, not to depend on anyone to be happy. And now Ryan is learning that too. Yes, Mom, he's learning. When everyone had gone to bed, I was left alone on the terrace again, my favorite place, my sanctuary. I took out my phone and wrote a message in the family group we had created after all the drama. My 3 children are under this roof tonight, and I feel like the richest woman in the world, not because of the money, not because of the house, but because I finally have what I always wanted, peace. The replies came quickly, heart emojis, words of love, and a message from Ryan that made me cry. Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom. Thank you for teaching me that true love also sets boundaries. I love you more than words can say. I closed my eyes and let the tears run freely. But they weren't tears of pain, they were tears of liberation. The next day, before everyone left, I did something I had been planning in secret. I gathered them in the living room and took out a folder. I want to show you something. I opened the folder. Inside were legal documents. 3 months ago, I donated $5 million to a shelter for elderly women who are victims of family abuse. It's called Rebirth House. It helps ladies who were dispossessed, manipulated, or abandoned by their families. It gives them shelter, food, legal advice, and therapy. My children looked at me with wide eyes. Why didn't you tell us? Gabby asked. Because I didn't do it to show off. I did it because I could have been one of them. If I hadn't had the resources to defend myself, if I hadn't had Moni, you two, maybe I'd be in a nursing home against my will right now while someone else enjoys my house. Mom, Ryan had tears in his eyes. And I want you to know that the rest of my estate when I'm gone will be divided equally among you 3. There are no favorites, no punishments. Each of you will receive the same. Because I love you all equally, and because I want you to remember that money is just a tool. It doesn't define who you are or how much you're worth. Sebastian wiped his eyes. You're the wisest woman I know. I don't know about wise, but I have learned something in these 68 years. Family love isn't bought with inheritances. It's earned with respect, with presence, with actions, not with promises. All 3 nodded, and in that moment, looking at them all, I knew I had done the right thing. That afternoon, after saying goodbye to Gabby and Sebastian at the airport, I returned home. My house. Not Jessica's house. Not the Thompson family's free hotel. Not the prize they wanted to snatch from me. My house. The sanctuary I bought with 42 years of work. The place where I finally learned to say no. The space where I got my voice back. I sat down in my gray velvet armchair, the one Mr. Thompson hated, and I smiled. Because I had won. I hadn't just reclaimed my property, I had reclaimed something much more valuable, my dignity, my autonomy, my right to live in peace without anyone making me feel selfish for wanting to enjoy what I built. And as the sun set, painting the sky pink and orange, as I listened to the eternal rhythm of the waves, I whispered the words that had sustained me through the darkest moments. I spent 42 years building empires for others. Now I build my own peace, and that no one can ever take from me. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. Because I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means you no longer carry the weight of resentment. I learned that true family is built on respect, not obligation. I learned that saying no doesn't make you selfish, it makes you brave. And I learned that it's never ever too late to defend what's yours. At 68, I discovered that old age is not synonymous with weakness. It's synonymous with experience, with wisdom, with well-placed boundaries. And whoever doesn't understand that simply doesn't deserve to be in my will or in my life. The end. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel anger, hope, or justice, leave me a comment telling me which part impacted you the most. Like if you think Helen did the right thing by defending her dignity. And subscribe to the channel to keep hearing stories of brave women who refuse to be victims. Because true wealth isn't in what you possess, but in what you don't allow to be taken from you. Tell me, where are you watching from? Write your city or country in the comments. I love knowing that these stories reach hearts all over the world. See you in the next story. And remember, it's never too late to reclaim your voice.